Welcome to the Arun Church podcast, where our mission is bringing life to everyone, everywhere, every day. Each podcast episode features the latest talk from our church, which are released weekly. We're passionate about Jesus, love to worship together, and are committed to changing our community for the better. Connect with us at arunchurch.com.
Thanks, Becca. Thanks for the privilege, the invitation to speak. It's great. My name's Andy Strajnic. Doesn't matter. I'm quite a confused European, really, because I'm born in Sweden. I have a Swedish passport and lived there till I was 20. My mum is from Germany. My dad is from Serbia. And I moved to the UK when I was just 20. And now we've left Europe. So I really don't know who I am anymore, but fortunately, I'm married to the lovely Louise back there. 2 boys who are outside playing football and doing other things. I hope they're behaving. Levi and Isaac. Thanks for your hospitality and your love. It's great. I could tell you a lot of stories. I'm at that age where, like, you always like, oh, one day in the future, this is going to happen. And I'm quite a sort of sunny personality. I get all my energy from what is going to happen in the future. Louise tends to bring me down to, reality sometimes. But I'm like, well, it's going to be fine because next week, or it's going to be okay because next month, I get all my energy from the future. But these days I'm like, well, 20 years ago when we, and 15 years ago, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I sound so old, 48 in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm getting old, but some of you are obviously weren't wondering who this handsome young man was on the stage. But he is getting very old. Gravity, it's taking its toll everywhere. I'm beginning to feel it. You don't have to say amen or anything like that to that. Great. So, David, thank you for that introduction. I can't quite follow that. I don't have thunder, or Moses or anything like that. But I'm going to go a little bit further back in my introductions because God introduces himself progressively throughout the Bible. I don't know if you've noticed that, but in the beginning, it's it's just God and Adam and Eve in the garden. It's all very, very cozy and tight. And all of a sudden there's like sons, and then there's like angels, and then suddenly it's like Noah and loads of people, and then there's more people, and God still speaks he speaks to Abraham. He says, Abraham, I want to be your friend. I want to show you things. I want to work through you, and through you, all the nations of the earth are going to be blessed. It's like, oh my goodness, that's a small start. Imagine God shows up to Tim and goes, Tim, through you, I'm going to bless all the nations of the world. And Tim's like, but I'm so little. It's just me, Or like, the 3 children in the Narnia movie, and they get told by Aslan that they're, kings and queens, and they're like, but we are from Finchley, Imagine, they're like, such a small beginning. But God, that's how he works. He doesn't always thunder on a mountain. He speaks almost all the time. He works through people, through you and me, and small people from Finchley. Like, he works through us. That's the miracle. So I just want to take you back from that mountain, because the mountain was a powerful thing, and God spoke to a whole people who needed some boundaries. I don't know about you, but let me just say about that. David mentioned, the little girls, Veronica, who cried because her dad hadn't given her the boundaries. It's really interesting. There's another boundary going on there. Watch what's happening. The mother is taking the child out of the room. But we give our children back. They live with us for years. I mean, if most household kids live with us for years, and they get identity and boundaries. They get loads of, Daddy loves you, Mummy loves you, we love you, you're great, you're okay, we love you, you're ours. You look like us, If they don't, it's, not great maybe, but, you have an identity, and yes, you can do that, no, you can't do that. Identity and boundaries. That's what God gave his people. He says, you're to be my people, my special people, you're mine, and these are the boundaries in the following chapter 20 for next week. Identity and boundaries. And we've had that for years and years. We've had identity and boundaries. But then you grow up from that as well. So some of you here have known identity and boundaries all your life in church and Christian circles and everything. And that's all you've known. And for some of you today, I just want to say it's time for more than identity and boundaries. It's time for rulership and to take his kingdom even further, to grow up in God and to become a spiritual house in God and to become a spiritual powerhouse in God and to be more than just identity and boundaries. And that's for maybe for another time. So can I just go back in my introduction a little bit and just talk a bit about the image you were made in. And I realize the time is always short on Sunday mornings. This is also a boundary. And someone said to me in the coffee queue, can you speak as fast as Joe Gisby? And I said, no one can speak as fast as Joe Gisby. But I said, I'll try and speak as fast as I can, because there's a lot, as some clever person said, God has a lot on his heart, and he communicates it through the local church, doesn't he? So we'll try and do that today. So in the beginning, I want to go back to the beginning. The first opening line in the Bible is this: in the beginning, God. In the beginning, God. So if you want to know anything about you right now, about you, you've got to go back to the beginning and find out what God had in mind for you. No wonder we lose our way, because I'll come to that in a minute. We lose our way in so many ways. And the moment you lose your way, you've got to retrace your steps back to where you started. Where did you start? Where did it start to go wrong? If you get on a plane in the UK and you fly to New York and you set the autopilot on 1/4 of a degree out, do you know you end up in Massachusetts? Okay? You can't notice it when you go out of Heathrow. You can't notice it when you go over Bradford. You can't notice it when you go over, Ireland. You don't notice it. You think, well, this is all fine, but you set off with 1/2 a degree off. And so if you want to, so the further you go, you can go really off. And we can do that. We can go way off when our values and the way we are built from the beginning, our boundaries and our identity don't quite. So we've got to go back to the beginning. So I'm going to go right back to the beginning today. In Genesis 1 and 2 and 5, it's repeated, and it says this: God made man in his own image. In his image, he made them. He put his hand on a bit of dust, and he formed it, and he breathed in it. So you're made of two things: dust, flesh and blood, and spirit. You're made of two things: flesh and blood and spirit. Without spirit, you are just chemicals. I'm sorry. I know you think you're very, very precious and important, but you're really just a random collection of, not random, but slightly random, because, collection of chemicals and stuff. And then God breathes into you, and you become one of a kind. Suddenly you become a spiritual being. You become an eternal being. You become someone with a sacred identity. Suddenly you have the DNA of God in you. Suddenly you have much more than just a collection of atoms and dust. Suddenly you are spiritual. You can, when you speak, things happen. When you pray, things happen. When you invent, when you are more than just a collection of atoms. Suddenly you are supernatural. Suddenly you are a supernatural thing. You're an eternal, incredible thing. So that also, it's very comforting for me, because if I see that God has made humans out of flesh and spirit, then it's quite okay to be human. If he says yes to humanity, and Jesus, his son, then when he came as a human, I was like, it's okay to be human then. Well, that's good news. I don't have to beat myself up for being human anymore. That's amazing. Just, there's so much in there. What does it mean to be made in the image of God? Just really briefly, this is from Michelangelo's in the Sistine Chapel. That famous picture where God is holding out his finger, and Adam, who is down here, holds up his finger, and you can see that they're sort of, the image of God. It means this: your life has incredible value Not just because you're an individual, but because if God made you and he's the creator of everything, then he gives you value. He puts value on that. You are, as it were, his child. You're his child. It means that your life is sacred. The sanctity of life. Have you heard that before? That's why it's quite illegal to kill somebody. You know, every life has value to it. Where do we get that from? How do we know we have value? How does our law courts know that we have value? How do you know that human life is valuable? Well, this is a great question. How do you know that? Who told our molecules and our biology that that's suddenly really important? Well, we have a value system. I hope you realize we have a value system that we've inherited generation after generation after generation after generation. We have that value system. It comes right from the beginning. You take that value system away, what do you get? Absolute chaos. Don't for a moment think you can take away the Judeo-Christian values out of our lives and we end up with just, it's okay. We'll just carry on as normal. There is no normal without the values that God has laid down in his word. There is no normal. It's chaos, pure chaos. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So your destiny right from the beginning is to be one with God. And someone say one with God. And I don't just mean close to God. I don't just mean, you can be related to somebody but live the other side of the world. I have 27 first cousins. That's a lot of cousins. We don't all live in the same place. I mean, we're related. We come from the same family, but we're miles away. I'm married to Louise, and when we first got married, we were legally married, but we were practically strangers. We were engaged after 2 weeks. That's a whole other story as well. And that's a faith journey. You really that's dating in faith, that is. No, and she lived in India then, and I lived in the UK, and we had a year and a half of engagement, and she was there, and I was here, and and then so we did get married. It's like, oh, hello. We were one legally, but we were really not one in experience yet. You see what I mean? It took a long time for us to really just really click and get each other. Okay? So the fact that you're one with God is, you might be well out of practice. You might be you have no idea how that really works. But I'm telling you now, that is your DNA. You are a supernatural being who is both spirit and flesh. And God has made his imprint on you, even if you've never known it or acknowledged it. I have news for you today. You have a Father in heaven you might not even know about. You have an imprint from God to change the world that you might even not know about. You don't even know where to start. I sound a bit like John Cleese now. You don't even know where to begin with or what to even do with this thing. My unenviable task is in the next 6-7 minutes to bridge that gap somehow for you. We can do it. So something happens. Let me read this out to you. You are not flesh and blood, a flesh and blood body having a temporary spiritual experience. You are an eternal spiritual being made in the image of God, having a temporary flesh and blood body experience. Can I read that again? You can read it. You can whisper it if you want. We're so polite here, aren't we? You are not a flesh and blood body having a temporary spiritual experience. Ooh, that was great worship today. Oh, thank you, Jesus. No, you are an eternal spiritual being made in the image of God having a temporary flesh and blood body experience. I mean, if we're lucky, it's 85. My dad died 4 years ago. He was 73. That's a bit too short. We just talked about a friend of ours who, he died before he was 30, left 2 little kids behind. It's very temporary. And you feel very small. I'm going to show you how small that is in a minute. But that's your beginning, and that is who you are. You're an eternal spiritual being. Now, something happened. There was a disconnect. Okay? Adam and Eve got disconnected from the oneness. Something came in between. Okay? Something disconnected them. and there are hundreds of sermons in this, but when they got disconnected, God asked them some questions. I don't know if you've ever thought about that. In the book of Genesis, that God asks humanity some questions. The first question was this. He says, where are you? God was not looking for GPS coordinates or an Apple tag or, find my iPhone. It wasn't like, hello, where are you? He was like, where are you? As in, you have hidden yourself from me. Where are you? The image of me, I'm missing it. Where is it? Where are you? In other words, their contact, their gaze, their connection was gone. Their instant, we are just perfect together. That was gone. If you ever had marriage trouble, or you've ever had a fallout, or you've ever had or you've done something you're just like, this is not great for me and God, we all know what we're talking about. There is a disconnect. We're not looking each other in the face. We're not talking. I mean, those are the worst, I remember as a teenager, it's like, love trouble. It was like, my whole world is ending, It is the worst. And marriage trouble is even worse than that. My whole world really is ending if that's not working. The disconnect is absolutely gut-wrenching. And so God's like, where are you? I mean, there's 500 sermons just in that. Where are you? He's walking around the garden. It's like, where are you? I am missing the connection. It's gone. And then he says, he says to them, what is this you have done? In other words, do you realize what's happened here? That's the second question. What's this you have done? Do you realize the magnitude of this disconnect? Do you realize that this has put a chasm between us, that it's going to take tens of thousands of years and my son to heal up? And a justice is going to have to be made. Do you realize what's happened here? As in, we have to ask that question. And the third one is this. Who told you? It's not one of my favorites. Where do you get your information from? Who is it that told you something else that I haven't told you? Who told you the lie? Where did you get the info from? Man, there's 50,000 sermons just in that. Who told you? We had a perfect relationship. Somebody else came in with different information that was a lie and broke that. So who told you? Where's this falsehood coming from? You want to ask every young person in this school, who is telling you stuff? Man. And we prayed today, and I pray for everyone who does work here and who moves amongst people today. Different information is needed about origins, about where people come from. Are you just a collection of atoms, or are you made in the image of God? And you have something about you that is just good. There are a few other questions, like, why are you angry? God says to one of the brothers. Suddenly there's killing involved. And God's like, why are you angry? Not, you can't be angry, but why are you angry? Come on, let's start talking about emotions and injustice and why are you angry? That puts value on us. It's okay. Talk to me. All of those are relational questions. All of those are relational questions because God is a relational God who needs the imprint. He longs for oneness. So you've come out of oneness, and oneness is always the destiny. All right? A couple of super quick questions. So when you lose the oneness of God, do you know what happens? Suddenly you are disconnected in a very, very large space. I mean, a very large space. This is a picture of the Milky Way. It's our galaxy. It's about between about here, between about here and here, okay, it's about 100,000 light years. All right, that's you got to travel for 10,000 years and 186,000 miles an hour per second. Okay, 6 trillion miles. Times 100,000, you've got to travel to get from one end of our galaxy to the other. Do you know where our solar system is? Our solar system is there, roughly. Can you see it? There. That's our solar system in the galaxy. Do you know how big our solar system is in the galaxy? Take a 10p coin, maybe this SanDisk USB drive, and throw it on the continent of America. That's how big our solar system is in our galaxy. There are 100 billion galaxies. Sorry, there are 100 billion stars in our galaxy and 100 billion planets, at least, in our galaxy. And just yesterday I read in the National Geographic, there are 2 trillion galaxies. And they think there's more and that it's expanding all the time. That's a very, very large space to be alone in. Okay? Our solar system, size of a 10p coin on the continent of America, in our galaxy, there are 100 billion stars at least, probably more, and 100 billion planets in our galaxy alone, in the Milky Way, all right? And there are 2 trillion galaxies. That's a very large space to feel disconnected in. That's a very large space to be lost in. A couple more pictures really quickly for you. This is from Namibia, taken with a Nikon 810 camera. A good camera can see this, where there's no light pollution. This is the Milky Way from Namibia, and this is from Dumble-Young Lake in Western Australia. This is the Milky Way. You can see it from the planet. The Greeks used to talk about it, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, how they could observe this sort of Milky Way when it was very dark. You can observe it very well with a good camera. You can get these pictures from the Earth. Any one of you can go and buy a camera and just take a picture, and suddenly you're like, oh my God. Absolutely, oh my God. This is a very famous picture. I'll just really quickly tell you. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see the pale blue dot? The picture is called the pale blue dot. Carl Sagan, famous astronomer and author, he worked for NASA, and this was taken from a little probe called the Voyager, which they sent off in 1977. And 13 years later, in 1990, they told it, just as it was exiting our little 10p coin solar system, it was just coming out of the solar system on the continent of America. It was just coming out of our solar system after 13 years, full speed, got a little bit of help from some planets, gravity. And it's hurling out of, and they tell it, so it's all full of valves and really ancient, they had a tape player to capture the data. You think you got upload problems. They had a little tape player running in there, and they sent the message, please turn the cameras around and take some pictures back. And they call them the family portraits. So the solar system, our solar, take a few pictures backwards. Don't just look out into the universe. Turn around and take a few snapshots. Took a few snapshots. And this particular snapshot, in the ray of the sun, they caught, this is less than a pixel, by the way, on the original photo. It's less than 1 pixel. There is a pale blue dot, which is our planet Earth, suspended in the massive universe. 2 trillion galaxies universe. There's the pale blue dot. And the guy, he was like, this is a speck of dust. My friend, you and I, in our flesh bodies, are a speck of dust on a speck of dust in a 2 trillion galaxy universe. That's a very large space for some, and we feel very small and insignificant. And so when you're disconnected from God, no wonder you're full of anxiety and fear and despair and whatever else goes around. And you would try and find meaning in that somehow. And it's like, I don't find any meaning in this. This is pretty big. And I feel completely like, please tell me there's some meaning to this. Isn't it a large place to be alone in? It's terrible. So I'm just going to try and finish with this. And God sends his son. And he has one purpose. And we often say this. We say it quite flippantly and quite quickly. Oh, yeah, Jesus died for me. Well, a lot of people die for other people. What's so special about that? Well, Jesus took my sin away. Yeah, that's better. He took away the disconnect. But what's perhaps most important is this. Jesus came to reconnect you with your Father, to give you oneness again. I don't mean I know Jesus or I know God. No. Please, don't lower the gospel to just that. He came to move into you. And if this is shocking, it is shocking. It's shockingly accurate. What happened when Jesus came? Well, he did this. He immediately started reorientating people to God. So they had all these rules, regs, rules and regs, pray like this, don't pray like that. Don't do this when you fast, don't do this when you fast, so that they could try and be right with God. And Jesus is like, you've got lost in religion and politics. Let me help you reconnect with God. So he goes, when you pray, don't do this, do this. As in, go into your room and actually pray to the Father. Don't just say a prayer. No, I mean go in, close the door and actually speak English to God who understands English. I was a bit surprised at this myself. I thought, God spoke Swedish or something else, but he does speak English as well. Go and speak to him, you and him. Like reconnect. And then he kept teaching them all sorts of things. When you fast, don't put on a show. Do this in secret because your Father sees in secret. When you give, don't do this. Do this because I want to reconnect you to the Father. And he kept teaching them to reconnect them. And then he says, my main goal is this. I'm going to go, but when I've died and got resurrected again, I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit and we are going to come and make your home with you. John chapter 14. I want to move in with you. I want to move in with you so that image of God can be resurrected in you again. You can actually really become spirit and flesh again and not just flesh trying to be good. Okay? That's exhausting and doesn't lead anywhere. I want you to be alive with me. I want you to be full of me. I want you to hear me. I want to be home with you. I want you to be home with me. I want us to be creating a new world together. I want us to create a new home for other people again. That's why he was so mad at the things that got in the way. Jesus was really angry at the things that disconnected people, as should we. He wants to move in. And he wants to then make you a home for others. And that's why I love this picture. Because Jesus came and he immediately made home for all his disciples. Because if there is a disconnect, it would be this. Well, let me ask you this. We're finishing. I promise we're finishing. There's a few things that will definitely disconnect and they keep you disconnected. Your fears will disconnect you from God. And so you have to practice the neural paths. Father, 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 I'm afraid. Father. Young people, Father, Father. Anxiety, Father, I'm anxious now. Just pace up and down the garden. I don't care how you do it or where you do it, but speak in English to God about how you are doing. And speak. And then he, of course, we heard the other week, he gives you other languages, speak in tongues. Whatever you speak to him. But speak and face those. It's where your mind goes. You've got to start practicing probably quite early on. Young people, don't wait till you're some kind of an old person like me. Now, speak. Parents, it's about training the kids to speak to God. It's all about communication and oneness. All right. So your perspective changes completely. Like when you die, where do you go? Well, if you came from God, you're going to go home, aren't you? It changes your perspective about death. You're not dying, you're going home. Can we say that together? I'm going home. You came from the Father, and you're going back to the Father. Jesus said that himself, didn't he? I came from God, I'm going back to God. You're going home. Can you nudge someone and just say, you're going to go home one day? No, but honestly, you're going to go home one day. And here's the other thing, I'll see you there. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Your perspective on money changes. We were talking about giving earlier. You don't hold on to it so tight. Because if God really owns everything and you are his son, well, you can learn to be really generous. And when you are generous and when you are kind like your Father in heaven and you are just like your Father in heaven and you practiced going there, when people meet you, they feel strangely at home. because they feel you've got the same qualities as their Father in heaven. They just feel it. I've had a lot of people say things like that to me. Just, what's going on here? So you're feeling the kingdom of God. You're feeling God here. We belong again. We come home. So you can tell there's a lot here. I just want to say your soul has a home button in the universe. You know, there is a home button for you to press. It's very close. It's as close as the journey is usually only this far, isn't it? You humble yourself and you pray and reconnect with God. And he's like, oh, I'm so pleased to see you. You know, in Luke chapter 14, the two prodigal sons, you know, one of my favorite lines is, while he was a long way away, while he was a long way off, his father saw him. So I just want to say to you today, if you are a long way off, your Father sees you, and he is so ready, he's running already. He saw you a long way off. So a reconnection is closer than you think. It'll feel like home. You'll have to ignore your pride, your ego. You'll have to bust any greed, bust any sense of protectionism, and just come. So anyway, we're going to finish now.